Chair Mueller, the time is 3:34 p.m. and you may call the meeting to order.
Okay, the meeting of the County of San Mateo Department of Emergency Management is called Emergency Services Council Special Finance Committee is called to order. We'll go ahead and do roll call.
All right, I think you may have a statement as well about the nature of the special meeting.
I didn't see us here. Before we begin, I'd like to note that this is a special meeting of the Emergency Service Council Finance Committee. In accordance with the Brown Act, the agenda is limited to specific items noticed for today and public comment related to those items. The usual agenda items for public comment, non-agenda matters, correspondence, and announcements, and council report outs have been omitted and will not be heard during this meeting. With that, we're going to call roll.
All right, from the City of Daly City, we have Glenn Sylvester.
Glenn Sylvester, present.
Town of Hillsborough, Marie Chong.
Present.
City of Pacifica, Christine Bowles.
Present.
City of San Bruno.
This is Rico, and I apologize. I'm up in Atwater at my mother's home and having to deal with her state.
All right, thank you very much. We note your participation. County of San Mateo, Supervisor Mueller.
Here.
All right, thank you very much.
Great, and with that, we'll move to agenda item number 2, correspondence of the clerk and announcements.
Right, do any Council Finance Committee members have any announcements today for the special meeting? Okay, none, thank you very much.
Okay, moving on, may I have an action to set the agenda and approve the August 26, 2025 minutes?
So moved.
Sylvester. Second. After.
Fighting for it. All good, all good.
All right, is there any public comment on any comment on the issue?
All right, just for the record, the motion to approve the minutes was first recommended by Councilmember Marie Chong and then seconded by Vice Mayor Glenn Sylvester. Thank you.
And there's no public comment that I heard at this time. Anyone online to comment? No? Any comment among the board members? Committee members? Okay, we'll go ahead and move to a vote.
City of Daly City, Glenn Sylvester.
Aye.
To approve the minutes, thank you. And Councilmember Marie Chong of Hillsborough. Yes. City of Pacifica, Mayor Christine Bowles.
Yes.
And County of San Mateo, Chair Mueller.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll go ahead and move to a budget presentation.
Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to present the budget to you all. So a little bit about what this JPA does for the entire county or operational area to include all the cities. We do the 4 phases: preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation. And what that looks like in day-to-day is that they all blend. So, for example, we will go out and do public outreach out there that will increase SMC alert subscribers, and then we get people interested in preparing. We also do trainings and exercises with law enforcement, fire, and EMS partners as well. We have a couple of great exercises slated for this year. One of them is the Golden Eagle exercise, which is coming up on May 12th, and another one, the Great Shakeout, which is coming on October 15th. We are working diligently with our law enforcement and our fire partners to do unified command exercise. So this is something that the 3 entities have collectively brought together, where every law enforcement and fire partner will, during an incident, will park right next to each other for incident command, and we're practicing that in May. And that was a big lift with law and fire agencies to be able to do that. In terms of our planning, most people would say that a department doesn't take on 3 big plans at the same time, but we really needed to do them because they were so old. So emergency operation plan, our all hazard evacuation plan, and our local hazard mitigation plan. These are the three plans that we've been working on and will be completed by the end of next fiscal year. And we do a lot of recovery support with if there is a emergency or a disaster, working with the state, working with the feds, and so on. Next slide. The financial landscape continues to be uncertain, and this is something we talked about last year as well. And there are a lot of headwinds coming our way. Cities, county, specifically VLF funding shortage. We know this exists for all of the cities and the county, and this is a huge issue. The state also has funding gaps because it's not getting money that it needs to from the federal government. Simultaneously, shifting federal policies have put the monies that were already given to us through grants at risk. We know we lost the BRIC grant for Pacifica, we lost the BRIC grant for Menlo Park, and you know, it's there, it's not there, it's then coming back, but then it's not coming back, and it keeps us all in this cycle of uncertainty where we can't move big mitigation projects, and that continues to be a problem. And rising costs, you all see it, gas prices have gone up, you know, there are significant costs rising in the Bay Area, and I would say probably in the US. And so there are headwinds financially, and one of the things that was suggested was by Councilmember Gold, who is here today. He suggested that we look at what we could continue putting into our own pots. How do we reallocate money? Do we look at risk-specific hazards? Do we look at other ways of looking at how can we bring more money into the JPA? We've also thought about different things. So we looked at that with the CFO, and right now that's not, the exercise was not suggested that we do it right now, maybe in a year or two where we have a little bit more leeway. Another suggestion was to get biotech together to see if we could get biotech to help pitch in, specifically for the hazmat costs. And what we have realized when we brought biotech in, biotech is only 5 to 10% of hazmat response in the county over a period of 5 years. We looked at 5 years. And so we brought them together. They usually have their own hazmat response teams. So then I think the question becomes, what are other pots of money that we could look at and leverage as we are working in a resource-constrained environment? Next slide. So we had done a lot of work in the past few years with, you know, digging into the budget, looking at every line item, and we continue to do that even this year. So I want to do a huge shout out to Andrew Loke, who is from the CFO's office, who actually did that deep dive this year. And I made sure that Ryan and Dave here did the oversight. So Ryan is going to present this. And the reason we did this is so every time someone looks at it fresh, they can look at things differently. And that difference then helps us figure out what line items do we need, what line items. So we continue to do that refinement. And you will see that even after this meeting, we will continue to do some refinement, and there will be a little bit of lower costs that will happen. So, Ryan?
Yeah, so I had an opportunity to work with Andrew on the budget this year with Dave. It was actually a pretty good experience overall. I feel like I learned a lot, and so excited with the opportunity to take you through today's budget. So starting with what we expect to be in the trust. We expect around $800,000 to be left in the trust. And starting last year, we established a hazmat vehicle replacement fund. So there'll be $150,000 that was budgeted in there last year that will be coming in that. Overall, our budget's expected to be about $4.5 million. 42% of that coming from the cities, 41% coming from the county, about 8% coming from grants, and then about 9% coming from SFO. Of the city's portion, about 21% comes from operational area communications. This is things like radio channels, microwave lines that come from the hospitals, and some hardwire lines that come from individual city halls. Emergency management costs, so these are management costs that go with the work that we do with the ESC, that's around 15%. Around 7.5% goes to services and supplies, and 56% is for hazmat environmental health. And so this is the hazmat response team at San Mateo Consolidated Fire, and also the hazardous response team at environmental health, and so when they respond out. Total expenses, around 25% are for service charges, and that $150,000 that is budgeted for the hazmat vehicle replacement fund. Around 32% is that for salary. A portion of the DEM staff is funded by the JPA. And then 42% is in the form of programs and contracts that exist within the department. There's an overview of the contracts that exist within or programs, that currently exist. So we have the local hazard mitigation plan that is currently being funded by a grant. Thank you to Councilmember Sylvester who found the grant for us, and we went after it, and we got it. Most of that work is occurring right now in the fiscal year. We expect the bulk of the work to be done this fiscal year, but it will go into next fiscal year. And so this remaining $93,000 is money that will be spent down as we go through approvals at Cal OES, FEMA, and finalize the plan. We do expect it to be completed in the early part of next fiscal year. Situational awareness and operational area tools. This is for tools that we are building within our own EOC that are going to be operated within the team's environment that will allow us to have situational awareness, which will allow us to handle logistical requests, which will allow us to handle different operational needs within the EOC, and that we'll be able to share with the cities and towns. Strategic comms and community outreach. So this is the work that we're doing around community outreach, community engagement, and some of the communications work that we're doing. We have about 85,000 set up for emergency management training and exercise. This is set up to be exercises that will bring, training and exercises that we'll bring in 2027 sometime. And last is the money that goes to fund Disaster Prep Day, which will be August 1st of this year. So the recommended budget, 93% is what we funded. We have about 7% that is funding that comes from grants. We've seen a drop in that a little bit, but that's money that we're expending around the LHMP. The money that we get from the emergency management grant, emergency management preparedness grant, seems to be heading about the same. And so this is what we have for the budget.
Yeah, so at the next ESC meeting, we will be presenting this budget. As I've mentioned, the numbers on this sheet that you all have in your packet will slightly change by a few dollars here and there, but we are expecting that to decrease. Again, making those refinements, that is why this is a draft. And so a couple of things that need to happen is I will also request to use the trust fund monies to start the procurement process on the hazmat vehicle. We think that will take about 5 years to get, which means that we will dip down below 500K on our trust fund. So that will be something that we will have to do because we don't have enough money in the vehicle replacement funds yet. And I want to share that we did finalize the contract with the hazmat San Mateo Consolidated for a 2-year extension with a 10% increase for the first year and a 6% increase for the second year.
So the vehicle that we're purchasing or replace, does that belong to the San Mateo Consolidated?
No, it belongs to this JPA.
But the hazmat contract is with them. So how does that, so what is this vehicle in particular serve?
The vehicle serves the whole op area, so they need a specialized vehicle. That vehicle belongs to us collectively, the county and the 20 cities. And right now they have an aging vehicle that needs to be replaced.
So this one is to replace
This one is
the aging vehicles. So it would sit in San Mateo Consolidated, maintained by Consolidated hazmat team.
we usually maintain.
You do,
We maintain.
okay.
Yeah.
The county
That's
does.
part of our service charges. Yeah.
So, my question is, when you were talking about trying to find other revenue sources, and given that we're buying a hazmat vehicle for fire, have we approached the independent fire districts for participation in the JPA? Menlo Atherton, Woodside, Colma, Coastside, because we're buying fire equipment.
We have not. So the hazmat vehicle serves, or the hazmat vehicle and the hazmat team serves the entire county. So they actually, the way it works is they work through us to be able to do that, because they don't have jurisdiction otherwise to go into another area.
But they supplement those.
They do supplement those, and that has been a tradition here for years. I don't know how long, but at least 9-10 years that I've been here in the county.
Well,
And
I think we should ask them. So Menlo Atherton has a lot of money. I know that they have a lot of money. I don't know what Woodside is, but my guess is that they would have money as well. This supplements fire protection services. And so rather than us go, I mean, that's what portion of the county's covered? That's at least 4 cities covered by those 2 districts, and then Colma and Coastside covers a good portion too. So if it makes no sense that they wouldn't be participating because you're taking money from city budgets into the JPA to supplement fire service as well. Why would we ask them?
Because in the past, all the cities along with the county pay to, sort of like the membership per population, there's a formula to it. We pay the membership, and that covers the hazmat. And the hazmat sort of entails the vehicle, that the program, the service is all in one, and we pay to that.
I understand, but I just don't think it's equitable. So in Menlo Park, Atherton, and East Palo Alto, the cities there, everyone pays property tax into a special district for fire. The cities had to have money pulled from city budgets to pay for a JPA that's then going to services to supplement fire makes no sense. The money, so at least that portion of budget should be coming from the fire district, and we should ask them for it.
yeah, we can definitely have a conversation with Menlo.
How many fire district do we have? One?
There's 4 like that.
Four
There's 4.
fire district in the
Woodside's
county?
like that, Menlo, Atherton, which is Menlo Park, Atherton, East Palo Alto, Coastside for the coast, and Colma. So, but those cities are basically supplementing fire services with this through their JPA that are, from a taxpayer standpoint, should be coming from those fire districts. So we should ask them to at least contribute to the hazmat vehicle.
We can definitely do that.
I think at our last meeting, we talked about the airport also, and I see that their numbers aren't scheduled to go up this year. Have we had conversations with
Yeah.
SFO?
Their contract is set to expire in October of this year, and so we're having active negotiations with them to increase those fees.
Okay, so that might be something that happens mid-year,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
okay. And when was their current contract drawn in terms of like the expansion work that has been done at the airport?
I think the original contract dates back to 2019 or 2020, so it's been around a while. And so we're working on doing that. I think the other thing I would say is that it's really based on a calls for service, and so the money they pay in is about how many services they provide. And so the actuals often don't totally reflect that.
So sometimes they're more, and sometimes it's less. So, you know, there was a year that it was like 500K came in, and there was a year that like 398 came in.
But they need us to be available,
Yes.
you know, for whatever they need.
We are in those
So-
negotiations.
Okay. And then, sorry, so I see that the hazmat is, you know, a huge part of the overall budget. So when you say that we're recovering some services, some money for services, are those for hazmat? And do we kind of have a list of what municipalities have been using them, or just to know where the money is going
For
as a
hazmat
percentage?
services?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the calls for service this time around, this past year, has been significantly increased. It usually used to be about 28 to 30 calls on average. I think this past year it's been closer to 40 plus, like 45-ish calls for service. And then in addition to that, they're getting a lot of battery fires that are now causing a hazardous material situation. So that we're trying to figure out how to collectively, with the hazmat team, trying to figure out how to codify that and collect data. So in their new contract that was signed yesterday, they do have to report electric vehicle battery, large battery fires. So we can keep that as a study, and as we study that, we can right size the budget.
And do you present at some point, like where the calls for services for hazmat?
So the hazmat team will be here for the April 30th at the
Okay.
full council meeting,
Okay.
and they'll provide an overall briefing of what their program is, what they've done. They'll provide some numbers of what they've done over the last year.
And then back to the cost recovery. So in what places do we recover costs now?
When we're saying cost recovery, those are generally associated with declared disasters. And so
Oh, I see.
things have happened. We've put money out, and we're now working with the state and the federal to return those funds associated with declared disasters.
So COVID-19, CZU fires would be a few. For Pacifica, we put in a declaration and also cost recovery, but we don't know where that will go because it wasn't part of a bigger. You need a minimum amount.
Okay. So we're not charging. I think you told me this the last time, but I'm still learning. Like for a hazmat response or anything, we're not typically charging for.
No, and some of the challenges around that is a lot of this stuff is stuff that's dumped on roadsides or dumped in the right of way, or it may be individual homeowners. And so then I think there's some challenges around, are we gonna start charging them? And some of them have no norm source, so it's a really difficult model to actually recover based on environmental, or hazmat, excuse me.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how we can divide it out, because I think the general concept is just similar to the regional dispatch. It's the same idea that you have the hazmat team reside in a fire department or district, and they are all trained together. They are not parsed out in different departments. So there's efficiency and effectiveness in terms of teamwork and training, and then they will be called upon for any kind of hazmat incidents. And I don't necessarily think that we parse it out to say, oh, this one happens in Foster City or that one in Pacifica, and therefore it's sort of regional or territorial, or that we kind of count that toward Pacifica or anything. So that would be interesting to have that discussion.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to see the reporting per municipality. I mean, if there's more education that we can do, right, or so forth to prevent some of these incidents too, if they're concentrated or if we see a jump in a particular area.
Is the hazmat contract, the increase mainly on the salary and benefits? That's always the case.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions in the room?
I have another one or two, sorry, just trying to look. I saw the programs expenses were, going down.
Yeah, so part of that
Substantially?
program expenses is we had the hazard mitigation grant that we received to pay for the LHMP, and those funds are being expended now. So there was a big influx of money that is now going out, so that saved us, the jurisdictions, from having to pay for that local hazard mitigation plan update.
And that program then will go away next year when we're done with it, because we would have completed the local hazard mitigation
And
plan.
then in 5 years, hopefully, another grant will come back in and we'll do it again.
Okay, so as part of this budget, we're not talking about cutting programs otherwise, because we had those discussions, right? That
Yeah, it's just
With less money
an
for grants
expenditure
and
of
other
grant
things.
revenues.
Okay, if there's no more questions in the room, I'm gonna do something unusual. I'm gonna open it up for public comment, but I'm gonna allow question and answer and public comment. And we'll go ahead and see who wants to go first.
How long would you like public comment to be?
We can go and allow 5 minutes for each.
Great, thank you.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
This is-
Mr. Medina, yeah.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to say that from where we started to where we are, as far as the percentages, the 10 and then the 6 is much better than how we started. So I want to thank the team for what they've done and how they've taken care of this and brought it back to us to bring back to the board. Thank you.
Okay, that was a lot less than 5 minutes. Thank you, Mayor. It's okay. Councilmember Gold?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So I wanted to echo what Rico said, obviously, that's important. But I did want to make a plea. I think Dr. Schrudy's probably expecting this, but at the last meeting, I was just trying to make the point that what we're experiencing now is going to be the ordinary. This is not an unusual situation. It's going to just keep getting tighter and tighter and tighter as budgets get tighter, both statewide, federal. They're going to roll down to the county and cities, of course. And my suggestion was just we should be proactive. And what I was suggesting was that we shift the cost a bit, not only increase, but shift it as well. And we have some relatively richer cities. We have some relatively poorer cities. And what I was trying to do was use this as an opportunity to kind of let's figure out another paradigm, because right now it's based, if I'm not mistaken, on 50% population, 50% on, I think, property tax basis. And maybe we could shift it a little bit, and every little percentage point helps. And even though I recognize that the money coming in from hazmat, from the biotech industry is 5%, if we could increase it by the 6, 7, 8%, it's going to help us a lot. And I think that that's one way to do it, is a service fee. The other one is to shift it to places with more risk. And quite frankly, that may be Woodside because of our terrain, and maybe some of the bigger cities with smaller populations. Maybe it could be based on, and I think I went through at least a half a dozen different paradigms that we could look at just to sort of increase the money, because just 1% or 2 here or there, and suddenly we're okay. And I think that the best example of that is what you've done just in the last recess to get to this particular point. So I think we should be proactive and really explore them and not be wedded and handcuffed to the current, scheme that we have, which is based on assessing every city based on population and tax revenues. And we need to be a little bit more creative and get there, because I don't think it's going to get better. I think it's going to get worse. Thank you.
So back in the room, any other questions from anyone? And not to belabor it, but I really think, so when I met with the fire chief in the fire station to talk about the hazmat vehicle, and then I looked at the budget here and I saw how much money is going to really fire equipment and firefighter training, to have cities that don't have any fire department contributing in a JPA spending as much money toward that. Just really isn't. I really think those fire districts should be on the hook for paying that portion at least. And to Councilmember Gold's point, they probably have more monies available to contribute toward that. The only other question I had was the one thing that surprised me that I had is the set of the budget recommendation slide. It said vote will be required at the ESC meeting. And the word required was surprising to me. I haven't seen that in terms of a budget meeting before. So my question is that because it's a committee meeting and budgets, assumably committee members like talk to their cities and their city managers about the JPA contribution, does this get sent to the city managers in advance so they can give the input to their city council members before they vote for it, or how does that work?
Yeah, so for years, the budget would usually get presented later in the year and would be voted on in June, which what we heard from the cities was too late. And so
Okay.
even though we don't have all the little charges in, or we make some very good estimates of what we think we would need and what we would expend. We've actually moved the meeting, this agendized item to the April meeting, so the all of the cities can prepare their budgets accordingly.
Okay, all right, so there's no worry. I guess it's on the city council member on the committee or the board to check in with their city manager before they sign off on the budget.
Well, through the chair, I'll say this. Over the years, we have discussed this. We have always discussed this about how much we want to put in the trust fund and how much we want to, and we've been tapping into the trust fund to supplement all these, deficits from the membership. So the membership actually are idle, with the current formula that we have. It's currently idle. And then every year we discuss at the budget meeting to say, if we are anticipating going forward, we're gonna have a deficit. And then we have to go back to our prospective cities for increase. We need to sort of anticipate that and get that discussion going. And that would also involve that DEM talking to the city manager's office and so forth. Because I don't think that each of the cities depends on the representation. If they're a new member, they may not know to bring it back to their prospective cities and educate their cities for the understanding why there needs to be an increase. And it is it is complicated. Because back then when we were discussing about the hazmat, there was a discussion about why can't we each all going back to our fire department or fire district to have that. At the end of the day, the discussion was that it makes sense to have it consolidated at one place and train and be more efficient because the calls are not that many. So all that needs to be sort of play into it. So if we are anticipating we want to change the formula or whatever, it needs to be discussed now. And then moving forward, anticipating that by fall, that we should be able to do the outreach with the city manager and the board members so that they can bring it back to their respective cities for discussion.
So it sounds like you'd want to advise the committee members at the meeting that this is our budget, this is where our projections are. You should take this back to your city managers so they can.
That should always be the case.
Yeah, but I mean, they might do it
Yeah.
natively, instinctually, or
Yes. Yeah.
we can remind them.
Yeah, we can definitely, when we send this packet out, we can definitely let them know that, and we can actually CC the managers as well.
So I would recommend that we CC the city managers, that we actually send the letter to the city managers and then the council members, that these are almost all city manager, well, they all are all city manager run cities, so we should send it to them.
Okay.
So speak now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, happy to do that.
So are we ready to close this out? Is there any action item on this? No? All right, then we can go ahead and close the item. And does anyone have anything you want to talk about before we adjourn?
Since we've discussed the budget, I will go ahead and cancel the finance committee meeting that's scheduled for next week. And we will take these action items and take care of them, and the majority of the portion of the April ESC meeting will be about the finances, and Hazmat will come present, and so we don't really have that much time to discuss other things during that meeting. We will have some presentations, but we'll probably not call for agenda items this time around, given that we probably wanna have a richer discussion. And so I'll share that with the larger group as well.
Okay.
Through the chair, just a quick, so that I understand, because, we have, Councilmember Gold, making the suggestion that there needs to be an evaluation on the membership due, shall we say, for now, in terms of the formula. And is it something that you want to bring it back to the board and then have the board to say, yes, that's the direction that we want to look at as a way to increase the funds? Or is it something that you're just gonna do some study and present it to us? Because I'll say this, it will be hard, all the cities are experiencing challenges, and many are talking about parcel taxes, and bonds, and, so this is not a good time, but then there's never a good time. So if this is a serious discussions and we need to look at it, then there needs to be some kind of processes, so either we propose it to see if we get the full board to support it, or that you do some study and then bring it forward.
I think we can take it back to the CFO again, and see what his suggestions would be.
Yeah.
And we can present that, at the meeting. We've looked at, council members' goals, recommendations. He actually, I think he had 10 different ways of doing it, and we've looked at pros and cons of that from a strategic perspective. If you do hazards, then there's certain areas that are like very high, fire hazards, and then certain areas are tsunami hazards, and those just like layer after layer, and then the whole county becomes hazardous. And so I think we can go back and look at that and come back with this recommendation on the April 30th.
Actually, can we have that in this meeting before it goes on the full agenda for everybody? Because if that goes into a packet to city managers without context,
Yeah.
that could create,
Yes.
that could create problems for city managers who are just looking
Yeah.
at things quickly.
May I suggest that, given your input, may I suggest that we keep the 26-27 budget as is, and then look to the next year to make those changes, so we have a year to make those changes. And at the same time, we will ask the fire districts to do some kind of contribution for the hazmat vehicle.
Yeah, I think asking the fire districts now. The fire districts I know Menlo Park, Atherton, I don't know completely about Woodside, but I know Menlo Park, Atherton has a ton of money. And they basically are so much money that they bank it into property. We need to be asking for contribution for that, for services, especially for those areas. It's not fair to ask those cities to pay for fire services, considering how much money, those budgets are almost as big as the city budgets. So, but and then I do think we need to look into in good faith and look at what Councilmember Gold is looking at, but we probably need to flesh it out before we put it in front of some city managers, 'cause. Okay. Everyone in agreement, we're good. All right, we can adjourn, thank you.
All right,
Thank
meeting is
you.
adjourned at 4:12. Thank you.